You all right? Sir, it's noon. Yep. Yep. I'm coming after you. Yep. You know it. You know it.
Yeah, John Rodriguez. Haven't seen him in a long time.
Mm-mm.
Welcome, man. Welcome, welcome,
Please.
welcome. All right. All right, all right. 12:04. We're going to get going and get started. Welcome to the REI Accelerated Community Call. Today, we've opened it up to a few other people. The recording will be posted in the Accelerated, but also in the Unleashed Facebook group, which is pretty cool today because we're talking anything and all things multifamily real estate. That opens up to anything that you guys really want to talk about. We have 2 through 4 units. There's Scott. I knew he was going to be on to ask a bunch of his questions. We're going to be talking about anything 2 to 4 units if you're doing like house hack or just buying smaller rental units. Or we can talk larger, 6 to 12, 12 to 20. And if you guys want, we can even start to get into some very small syndications if that's something that you guys are interested in. But more so, we want to answer your questions. So let's do that first. And I'm going to try to, if I have tools that we can work with, I'll try to keep those open. Most of these tools are found in the REI Accelerated Facebook group. I think they're already in there, most of them. And if they're not, we'll put them in there. So I see Gordon. And
I'm here.
Scott Brockelbag just joined us. All right. Who wants to go first on questions? We're going to cover questions first before I just go on like a random rant. Before I have to puke again.
Random rant.
Random rant.
I like random rants personally.
Random rants? All right. First, Scott. I know Scott's got some questions. You've got one?
I do have a question. I just don't know, like, I don't know if I have a question yet, but I'm still like processing it because I'm in the middle of just like pursuing a property that's on the MLS that's just been on there forever. And so I'm like, what the hell? Let me figure it, like, see what the deal is, and then, you know, make an offer regardless if it's gonna work or not. So I'm going through it right now, and it just seems like it went under contract. It fell out of contract because they got the inspection report back, and it's riddled with like water damage and roof and whatever and stuff. So I'm just like going through that and trying to kind of make sense of it. But I think I'm gonna try to walk it Saturday if possible. But I still need to talk to like my lender to see what I can even get, because I just haven't lined that stuff up yet. So I'm not sure if I have a question yet, but I will be thinking about it throughout the call.
Do you want us to go through?
I was going to say, was that a question? Because I didn't hear one.
No, it wasn't a question. It was more of an update.
I like updates, though. I like updates. Scott, did you want us to, you don't have to say any addresses or anything. Do you want us to go through the numbers with you today to analyze it with you?
I don't know. Like, maybe if there's other questions, I think I'd rather get those out of the way, but then we can maybe walk through it. I've got kind of an idea of what I want to do, but I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe touching on that small syndication would be helpful, because I definitely don't have the money to take this thing down. So
partnerships and JVs. Yep, we can do that possibly. So, oh God, that's a huge loaded question though on that one. So, well, it would probably be easier if we use this scenario. And again, we don't have to share addresses or anything, right, Scott?
Sure.
But like, so what do we have here? How many units is it?
It's a 5-unit. It's similar. It's the one we went over before, but I was like, let me just pursue it and throw in a lower offer if like the number's not making sense at this higher rate. So I got like all the information on it. So okay. I will have better numbers for you. But yeah, it's a 5-unit. It's all kind of different bedroom bath counts. It's not like a very standard. It's definitely like a Frankenstein house. So I don't know. Where do you want me to start?
Got it. No, I want to share. So I think everyone has access to this. This is in the REI Accelerated Facebook group. It might also be in the REI Unleashed Facebook group. But like, this is just kind of, and I know you and I love spreadsheets, Scott. A lot of people don't. But what this is, right? Like literally multifamily real estate is just boiled down to, does the number work and where does the offer price have to be at, right? To make the offer work. Like that's literally all multifamily comes down to. When we were in our heyday and we were trying to generate 20 to 25 multifamily offers a week, remember, those were not, a lot of them weren't even close to the ask price. The ask price didn't mean much to us at that point. We were an investment firm, and therefore, oh, this is for sale, or then here's our number. This is how we can make this work to meet our numbers. So all that starts with, I have this one. This was yours, wasn't it, Gordon, from like years ago? Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I got
Yeah, this is a deal we did together, Nick. You and me did this one together.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is one of the ones that we have, I think, in the our template spreadsheet. So, it's as quick. All the yellows is what you guys would fill out, right? So we have the address, and I'll keep the address in here since it was a real deal. I have an all-in price. So here for 325, but we need 100,000 to rehab, so I have an all-in price there. Does yours, Scott, is it value add? Does it need rehab or no?
It definitely needs rehab, but I think it's more of like necessity rather than trying to like maximize value.
Okay. So what would be like the purchase price, and what do you think the rehab would be on it?
Yeah, so like it's listed for like 750, but I would think it would go for, like, I would probably put in an offer at 650, 675, and then I haven't gone through and like done all the rehab stuff that it needs, but I know it needs like a new roof, and I see some like water and like termite damage. But I was just baking in like a 35K number.
35. And what's it listed for?
It's listed for 750.
Okay. So 785 roughly for an all-in, right?
Right.
Okay. And price per unit. So this is actually really important. 5 units is right on that line. This is for everybody, Scott, not just for you, right? 5 units is right on that line where it goes from residential to commercial. So it really all depends on your lender if they're going to look at this as a resi, right? So they'll give you good owner occupied financing or for a house hack, or are they going to jump you to 20, 25% down on a commercial? Do you know what your lender said they would do with this one?
No, I'm literally going to give them a call after this call.
Okay.
But just some added context, like it's a 5 unit, but one of them is like an in-law technically. So I don't know if that will push it towards being more residential.
Okay.
What's the town have it as? What's the tax assessment have it as?
Let me see.
And while he looks that up, it's important to know here, you guys. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because honestly, this property that we're looking at right here was actually a 4 unit on the tax records, right? And then what ended up happening was that the owner actually finished the attic off and made another apartment upstairs without pulling proper permits for it. So then it actually, when we went to go get it financed, it actually had to be financed as a 5 unit because they came out and did the appraisal, and then they were like, no, this is actually a 5 unit. So we had to switch our lending from what was going to be resi to commercial because of that, when that happened.
Yeah.
So you might want to be aware of, like, how is it that the town is, what town, city, how are they classifying this property? And, will they actually make it be is it a 5 or is it a 4? Because that is a big difference. Right.
Yeah. Best case scenario, it's a 4, but you have the ability to create it into a 5, and so that when you go to refi or go to resell, you got 5 now. That's your best case scenario. But I want to do price per unit. I want you guys to see the reason why this is in this spreadsheet and it's looked at more than in the commercial spreadsheet, right? Is because this is essentially how your appraisers are going to be evaluating your properties if you're under 5 unit or under. So typically, you guys have heard, right? You for commercial, anything that's 6 plus, you're going to take your net operating income, which is this number here, and that, which we'll go through here in a minute, that multiplied by something called a cap rate equals your valuation. Anything that's under a 6, though, appraisers are going to look at this price per unit number. They're going to look at all the other units in the area. If it's a 3 or 4 room house, right, or a 4 unit house, and they're going to say, okay, the other 4 units are going for, 175 a unit or 125 a unit or 130 a unit. And that will determine whether your appraisal is going to come through or not, which is important for financing. It also is a good rule of thumb if you're doing a value add, like in this one, Scott, you said you want to do a value add to it. So if you're buying it at, you know, the 750, and I just made that up, right? Be a 35K. I'll change these here. So 750 plus 35K in rehab. That will determine whether or not that financing can come through or not from your lender on that side of it.
Yeah.
Over here too, just to bring people through the spreadsheet. Go ahead.
I'm looking at the tax card right now, and I don't see like the unit count that I guess I'd expect. It just has like a building use apartment 4 through 7 units. I'm like,
yep, that's normal. So 4 through 7, it's at least a 4. But here's the big part. Another huge issue. The tax assessor card means nothing. That's just what you're taxed at. You have to go to the building department, and this is not. You're not going to do this now because you're not under contract, right? Once you get under contract, it's part of your due diligence period. This is for everybody, right? Part of due diligence in a multifamily offer. I'm going to try to pull that offer up so we can see that too. But go ahead, Scott. What else are you going to say?
that was it. That's where I was struggling, but I can run through whatever numbers we need. You're done with the kind of overview of the spreadsheet.
So is this fully rented? You said it needs a bunch of work. Is it fully rented right now, or
It is fully rented right now. I think that the owners, the sellers are like 70, 80 years old, and they're just like, yeah, let's be done with it. And the wife is like, yeah, like I will take a lower offer. And the husband's like kind of waiting for another offer. They do have one in hand that they're just kind of like hemming and hawing about. And so I'm just like trying to see what I can do within the week.
would they be willing to carry back any of the financing?
I haven't gone to directly to the seller at all. It's all through a realtor at this point. So
so there's a realtor involved. Okay, there's a realtor involved. Okay, yeah. Fucking realtors. Sorry, I had to say that.
Or a bunch of assholes.
Bunch of assholes.
Who said that? That was a new voice. Who was that?
That was Christina.
Oh, Christina!
Hi.
Hey. Oh,
Short sale queen.
Yes, she is.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Fire away, man.
So if I never knew, like I talked about this with someone before, who's a real estate lawyer, but I didn't really get a definite answer. What happens when you get a multifamily unit and it's already like fully rented? Like what happens like as far as like your rent and the tenants that already live there, do you leave the rent the same? Even if, because obviously you want the numbers to work out for you. You did your numbers in a way that you were expecting, like, if I charge this much for rent, maybe there's good cash flow, so maybe you're not doing it for the cash flow. It's just for other reasons, but I would assume that we want to have some cash flow, so how does that work out with you and the tenants that already live there?
Yep. I've got an answer for that. Before I do, does anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, you run with it, brother. Oh, it's
So
go ahead,
it really depends. No, it really depends on your intent, John. So sometimes you'll have a value add property, which means that your intent is that they're all super, super low rents, and you want to update all of these units to then up all the rents, right? Which typically means those tenants will probably not be able to afford that rent. So you're going to probably be taking it unit by unit, right? And this is part of our takeover procedure. I'm happy to share that with you guys too. But unit by unit, you go over and you first send them a whole takeover letter, right? In fact, I don't know how much you guys want to see on this one. I want to talk more than I want to share with you guys on this, but
So any leases that are in place have to be honored, even if there is a sale, right? So regardless of whether you want to buy it and you want to raise the rents, if there's a lease that's already in place, you have to honor that. If they're mostly all tenant at will, then you can absolutely go in there and start to, force some, rate increases, if it's able to be done. But just because the deed on the name on the deed transfers doesn't, those leases are still enforceable.
Yeah,
So you can't just go in there and just get rid of the people right away, right?
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Is
But
that
it
what's
all,
normally done?
what was that?
Yeah.
Is that usually what's done?
So the leases, yeah, and I'm going to jump to the offer first. So, and we're kind of jumping around, but I want to make sure you guys see everything here. Here's the national PNS agreement, which I know at least the accelerated folks do have access to. So if you go down to the contingencies, this is really important. So like you guys can see additional provisions. If there's a condo, if there's a septic, and here it is. If multifamily or tenanted, also contingent upon satisfactory review with 7 days of receipt. So seller does have to give you, because it takes 7 days to just sometimes get the information, or 14 days. So you have to review those leases because they convey with the property, like Gordon said. So it's not, your deal isn't moving forward unless you have an opportunity to already review the leases that are already on file, right? Because they convey with the property. So not just leases, we want to see leases, rental applications for those tenants, and security deposits. How many times have we taken over a property where the security deposit said that they paid $1,200, right? But then it was nowhere to be found, and we also didn't have that moved over on the HUD at closing, right? So who's responsible at that point when that tenant moves out and you didn't collect the money from the seller? Who's responsible for it, right? You are, the buyer. So how many times did that happen to us? Twice.
Yeah.
We put it into our system. But tenant contact information and keys, we need all this stuff. And if anything looks really fishy here, when you put anything under a contract, right, that's your opportunity. That this 7 days or 14 days, whatever you negotiate with the seller, that's your opportunity to bring this up, to bring questions up, right? Because especially if you're on MLS and you're looking at a listed property and they're asking $750, and they're saying that their rents are $2,000, $2,000, $1,800, and $1,800 on the rent side. But then all of a sudden you look at the leases, right? Or you look at the historicals on those, right? And the historicals show, well, they're only paying $1,400, they're either behind or the tenant. Like pro formas are what we talked about in the last call. Like pro formas just mean made up, right? So whatever the broker or the seller wants to share with you called a pro forma, it's a piece of paper and it's not worth anything. Your job is to verify what that property is currently producing. And then knowing if you're doing it as a value add and you know the area and you know what you could get for rents, or you have a good solid property management company and you're working with them, what's worth it to you, right? What is it worth? Is it worth doing all new kitchens and baths and doing a $15,000 to $20,000 turn instead of just keeping the old kitchens and old baths at like a $4,000 to $5,000 turn, right? So you have to make all those calls, and every one of them is an investment return decision. Okay, so if I invest $14,000 into this unit or $16,000 into this unit, I get to up my rents by an extra $800 a month. Let's just say that's something that we had in one of our portfolios in Manchester, right? We were at like $850 a month, and if we put in $14,000 to the unit, we jump up another $850 a month, right? If you do that math, right, $14,000, that's roughly what, like 19 months? 20 months to get that return. That's totally worth it for us. If you're doing something smaller, like we have properties now in Ohio and in Pennsylvania, like a single family rental, where all of a sudden now the roof has gone, all of a sudden now the heating is gone, and we have to put like $23,000 into these properties for not much extra in rent. So in those specific cases, we're just going to sell, because another buyer will come in from California that has way more money than brains and is happy to take single family rentals from us. But I wanted to share this with you, number one. So if multifamily tenanted, contingent upon the satisfactory review within 7 days of receipt and conveyance of all leases, rental applications, security deposits, tenant estoppel letters, if needed by your bank. Tenant estoppel letters are letters from the tenants that say, yes, I do in fact pay this amount of rent. tenant contact information and keys. In addition to this, if you're buying anything in commercial, we also, if we put anything under contract with them, we have another line in here that tells the seller, hey, if you are going to be leasing any other units moving forward as while we're in escrow, we want to be able to see the tenant applications and review the tenant applications for those leases that you're signing. Because we have an equitable right to that property at that point, right? We're going to have to get that lease, because where else has it happened when a seller, to get their price up, just signs a whole bunch of random leases, taking anybody they could at super high rents, knowing that there's no chance they would perform after 2 or 3 months, knowing that they don't have that income, but let's put them out for $2,300, $2,400 a month in leases. Holy cow, it just made our price increase and everyone wants our property because we have $2,400 a month tenants. Yes, and when they don't pay in 3 months, whose problem is that? So now we make it also contingent upon buyer's approval of any rental applications and new leases that are coming in while in escrow. So that's this. I want to show the takeover spreadsheet too, since I think that's important. So this is going to your question directly, John. So this is what we used to provide to when we were to take over a management agreement or take over a property, right? So it's like, this is a friendly letter, like, hey, this is who we are. And this doesn't have to be a property management company. This can be you, right? If you guys don't have a property management company, by the way, you absolutely should. It would be foolish not to, right? You can make this just as a new owner letter, right? This is a friendly and official notification. The property you're residing at is coming under new management. We're going to introduce ourselves. And we, tongue in cheek, oh, what's going on? Who do I call now? So here's the new number. Don't worry about it. What's changing? We're pleased to tell you we're going to be doing lots of improvements around the building, common areas, while we work to make this place great. We appreciate your patience working around the construction and improvements. It's all to make where you live a safe and welcoming place to be. We're preparing them and setting them up so that they're going to see construction work, and they know that we're going to be putting money into the building, right? What will happen to my rent? Right now, nothing. If you're on a lease, your lease is honored and good up until your renewal date, so don't sweat it. As we go through and make the improvements, and depending on the market conditions, we can discuss then if and when a rent increase would be in order. And yes, John, directly, right? So we always want to make, there's 2 things that we want to do when we take over multifamily. This is for anybody. This is commercial or residential, by the way. Assuming it has not been well managed. Number 1, once it comes under our management or you guys take ownership, you need to show everybody that now it's under good management. So the 2 things you can do, number 1 is to immediately start addressing any sort of old issues in that building. Tenant issues, common area issues, exterior, whatever it is. Like, that will show them that you actually care. Unlike any of the other management, like they've probably gone years without people responding to certain things in that property. So that's the number 1 thing to do to make people feel cared for, and because the property just needs it. Number 2, if there are any troubled residents or ones that are not paying on time or ones that are having some issues, and they've been having issues for a while, it's going to sound mean, but it's extremely effective if you do what we call a public beheading. If you literally post it, so like immediately upon taking, you see all the construction, they see the renovations happening, but now there's people not paying or paying late as they always have. We post notices immediately, so that all of a sudden they're seeing that, oh, wow, this company actually gives a shit. We can't just pay 15, 20, 25, 45 days late anymore, right? And if you get any trouble or there's a problem tenant that leaves a whole bunch of trash out there or whatever, like, that's a public beheading. We put notices, citations, and finally an eviction notice. And yes, it's public. Everybody sees it because that's what we want. We want people to see that it's under new management and new care, right? So that's what this is all about. And we also want, we're telling them here, we're going to need to get updated contact information from you. We're going to need to get the deposits there. We need to have all months, 1 month's rent. If you've already provided to your seller, you're good. But if you don't, we're going to be collecting it. And this is also giving them notice of when we're going to go and inspect their apartment. So when we send out this letter, our next letter, I am fighting some nausea right now. All right, let's see.
Nice.
All right, this will be a fun call. We'll see. It's coming out both ends too, y'all. Oh, Super
Thanks for
exciting.
sharing, man.
I
Appreciate
did.
you.
That's for everybody here, even on the replay. That's for everybody. This is the most. Gordon saw me before the pill. This is the most like active I've been for the last 2 days. I've like, I can't get my voice loud enough here. Okay, here's the resident information. So, and this is overkill. I wonder what it is who's seeing this. This is all overkill. This is a professional management company that's taking over a 3 or 4 unit building. You don't need to do any of this, but is it smart to understand what you're looking for from a tenant? Right? So when we're going through, right, when we're doing our inspection, when Scott does his inspection of that 4 unit building, he's going to want to have information from those tenants because the landlord and the broker probably won't give him accurate information or as accurate as the tenants could give him. Right? So as he goes through, he might want to bring something like this along and just re-verify. Do they have any pets? How many vehicles do they have? You know, and what the license plate is. What's their mailing address if it's not that address? Emergency contact. Like if there's no rental applications that have this information, he's going to want to get this information from those existing tenants to make the transition so much easier for performance. And also, I'm going to show you this as well. Here is our checklist. This is an internal checklist. So again, you don't have to do much of this, but prior to closing, right? Do your best to get tenant information. Ensure all units are legal with certificates of compliance. We just chatted about that. The assessor's office doesn't mean anything for how many units that is. Why? Because of Lowell, because of Manchester, because of Nashua. How many times have you bought something that was taxed as a 6 unit, but then the building department says, no, it's only 4 units? Who's right? I'll tell you who's right. It's the building department, right? And no matter what, now you're just going to basically, now the tax assessor, you have to go through the building department process to get 2 more certificates of compliance. So zoning and the building office trumps all other offices in the city. And that's part of your due diligence process. So we have this, make sure they're all legal, make sure they all have lead certificates. And if not, I think you guys might have, we had Rob Loisel speak to the REI Unleashed community before. He's our kind of primary lead guy. You can check, I think we have the recording in the Facebook group, but I'm not going to go through this. A lot of this is our internal stuff. Here's another one. If you're going to hold on to this, and Scott, you might already have done this for your units. Does anybody here use mass saves or NH saves for their efficiency stuff? No? That's worth the cost of admission here today, you folks. masaves.org, .net. You usually don't go to them directly. It's, you know, National Grid, Eversource, PS, Unitil, all of the utility companies. There's actually a piece in your bill that you're paying every single month that goes towards renewable energy. And a whole bunch of other companies have decided to take it upon themselves to monetize what you're paying the utility companies, and they go and help create and make your properties, help it with insulation, with making it airtight, help making
Solar
it with
panels?
better windows. What is it?
Solar panels.
Solar panels is a different kind of company, but yeah, there's other
Well,
incentives and renewables for that. Yes.
yeah, they use that piece when you're doing like solar
Oh, yeah.
panels. Hey, renewable energy, like you're paying for this, you know?
That's it. Yeah, and you are. Absolutely you are. So that's another solar for us and multifamily, just to go off on that topic. You almost need like a big, remember, so the tenants are all paying their own electric, right? We have the tenants always pay their own electric bills. In fact, they can't move into the property until they give us their account number with Unitil, National Grid, whoever, Eversource. And if the heat is separated, we have the tenants paying their own heat as well. It's part of our value add process to move almost any property, get rid of this here too, to move almost any property into a tenant paid utility zone. That brings us into our next, we're going back to like quick evaluation. You guys still with me, or am I boring the hell out of people?
I like it.
All right. We're going to do a really, really dirty and quick evaluation of a multifamily building. Okay. I'm not even going to use the spreadsheet. Here's what I need to know. I need to know what the property can possibly rent out by, right? So what the market rents are. How do you guys find average market rents if you don't know what the market rents are in there?
I typically look at section 8.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm also by HUD, section 8.
Yep.
HUD Section 8 will be your HUD Section 8 rents. Yep. Sometimes they're super high, sometimes they're super low, depending on the market cycle. Right now, I think they're right on market, aren't they? Because sometimes like we were renting stuff market rate for like $13.50 back in 2011, and Section 8 was at like $16.50. And then as the rents all started to go up, now we're renting stuff at like $18.50, and Section 8 didn't move. Depends on where you are, though. Every metro has their own Section 8 rents. But where else can you find fair market rates?
Rentometer.
Rentometer is a software that you guys can use. Yep. So that's one that we have here. We use Rentometer. What's the most accurate way of finding the rents in the area that you're looking to buy in?
Talk to a property manager.
Talk to a property manager. That's it. A good property manager that knows what they're doing. So absolutely.
Or
That's the
Zillow.
number one
Or
best way.
Zillow. Zillow's always right.
Or go straight to Zillow for sure.
So Zillow.
Oh, I'm losing track. Okay, so we have average,
Bring it back.
we have average market rate rents that you're getting from your property manager. I would use those against rentometer.com. You guys don't know that site yet? You can get a free account. I don't know how many they allow you per month, but a free account is more than enough, especially if you're analyzing just for one area. And that's when I fill in this part of this analyzer sheet. So these are old numbers. This is a deal we did. It was years ago, right, Gordon? No, it was like 3 or 4 years ago. So the numbers are all changed now. But if we have it here, so here are the projected rents. Current rents, I think it was vacant to start, but I'm going to put in these projected rents. Now, Rentometer says $12.60. We went lower because we know that Rentometer is using all areas, class A, B, C, and D, right? So high-end luxury, newly refurnished mill buildings, like it was using all that. We're in like a class C minus, C, like affordable development, right? An affordable multifamily house. So we were putting lower rents than what we saw in Rentometer in here. And I think we might have had access to the property managers out that way too. So we put that in here for 1 beds, 2 beds, and 3 bedrooms. And we had 4 1-beds and 1 2-bed. And that spits out, right, these numbers here. Here's our monthly, here's our annual, 70,800. So I don't know why my projected is lower than that, but let's say, so 68.4, 70,800, then goes up into the C10. You guys all see my mouse too?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that pops up into the C10 area. Here are 2 numbers you're going to want to know. And I'm going to do the quick one first, though. Ready? You don't need to know any of the specific stuff. If Scott gets a call from the broker and the broker says, hey, Scott, I've got this property. Scott should just be able to get 3 pieces of information to know if he's even in a ballpark, right? Number 1, what are the current actual rents being produced, right? Now, Scott, if he's doing a value add, might already know what is the current projected rents that we could get using his property manager connections in that side. So once you have that number, this 70,800, you need the second piece of information you need to know is who's paying utilities. So landlord or broker should be able to tell you that information. If the tenant is paying all utilities, which is typically electric, heat, electric and gas or whatever it is, at that point, you can typically use a multiplier of about 60% or 40% would be the expense ratio. I'm going to say it's 45% now. So I'm going to do this over here so you can see this. Times. So we're going to say expenses for this property, if it's well managed, this is going to say if tenant pay. These should be the expenses. If landlord pays, you're going to want to use one about 55%. So what's right in the middle? What if the tenant pays some and the landlord pays some, right? So no matter what, right, you're usually stuck paying water, sewer. So 50% is actually a solid number to continue to use. So if you're at 45%, put that over here, 45%, 55%. I'm going to go with, so this property, $35,400 is what we're going to estimate at the expenses. And if you guys look over here, how did we do? So here are your expenses in a multifamily property. right? So taxes, insurance, repairs and maintenance, general and admin costs. Typically that's, taxes or, K1s or whatever you have there, or bookkeeping. Management fee to a property manager, because you should not be the one managing these properties unless you have to now. I know, Scott, you have to now. I get it. It's okay. Professional fees, snow plowing, grass and leaf removal, pest control, trash removal. Fun fact, what if the seller sends over their expenses, and this happens every single time, by the way, and you're missing one of these line items from the seller's line item budget? What do you think that you should be asking the seller for? Right? I think I'm losing people. Or I'm just...
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I wonder why you must have just misplaced this document. I'm sure you're not trying to hide any of your numbers from me at all.
There it is.
And you want to please send it over to me.
Beautiful.
Right?
Beautiful. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
It basically shows you, and by the way, this is the same sheet that we would send to our lender. So we would go through our own analysis, right? And while we go through our analysis, we take... Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you going? Are you going to go? Oh, this would be awesome. This would be epic. Do it.
No,
We got you on camera.
No. I'm okay. I'm okay. This would be the case where we also take these numbers, and what we'd even do in our office is that once these were found to be true from the seller, right? So we have that 7, 14, or 30-day due diligence period. And I want to make that clear. In a 5 or under, that's 7, 14, or 30-day due diligence period, however long you want to use to review things. You usually don't need more than 10 or 14 days, but that's all you got. If you are in a commercial, if you're in a 6 to 190 unit or a 500 unit building, we actually set it in very different, and I'm jumping off, I'm going to wait on that because I'm jumping into the next realm here, but just know that the 7 to 14 to 30-day due diligence period, that's your physical due diligence, which is looking at every unit in the property, looking at the exterior, looking at the common areas, looking at the systems in the basement, making sure that there's not extra work that you haven't budgeted for, that the seller did not disclose. Happens frequently, right?
Never happens.
Some of the most frequent things, especially in Manchester, Scott, that we see as you go into the basement, there's asbestos everywhere. And again, you don't have to abate it, but if you don't abate, if you don't make the seller do it, or if you don't negotiate for abatement with the seller, guess who's going to have to do it ultimately? Full cash outlay. That's you, right? So what we do is when we see it, we take photos of it and we just let the seller know gently. Hey, we saw a whole bunch of stuff in the property. Most everything is up to par the way that you described it, Mr. Seller, Mr. Broker. However, there's a few extra things that we did not count on in our budget. We're hoping to have a conversation with you around that. And what does that conversation look like? That looks like, that could just mean, Mr. Seller, push it. It's going to cost us, an extra $18,000 to $25,000 that was unexpected. Mr. Seller, can you, contribute $15,000 in repair allowance at closing, or $20,000 in repair allowance at closing? Mr. Seller, it's going to be $20,000. Can you just give us $12,000 towards our closing costs and prepaids, and we'll handle it, right? Or discount and purchase price. Usually, it's better to get cash up front, right? That either help offset your closing costs and prepaids, or that gets put down towards just fixing the repair.
What are like the rules around? Are there like any guidelines or something? Like I get that obviously, like, I'd rather cash than a discounted purchase price that's spread over 30 years. So would I go in and say like that $35K that I think needs rehab? Would I go in and say, can I get $35K applied to repairs in cash upon close? Is that how that works? Or do I have to like work something out with the lender too? Because I feel like then the lender's like, oh, you're just financing the rest of this deal, et cetera, so forth.
Right. So can your lender even lend on the property? Like, it depends on what those $35K in rehab is, right? Your lender's not going to want to finance it unless it's a construction loan. If like the heating systems are at the end of its life, and the appraiser will say that to them, right? Or the roof's at the end of its life. So those are things, unless the seller already disclosed them, right? That you're going to be able to go to the seller back and say, hey, you can always use a lender as the bad guy. Our lender is requiring, or our lender won't close unless, right? But really, you want that you want the cash up front as best you can. Did the seller disclose to you that, or was that 35K just cosmetics, or was it like heavy, was it like a heating system or roof?
No, like the roof is leaking.
Yeah. Yeah, so the appraiser, that will come out on the appraisal report. And your lender's going to need
That's
to
where I
know that.
got it. They did an appraisal when it fell out of contract, so that's why I was going like sifting through, and I saw that piece. So I was wondering like what the best method was to get that cash for it.
Yep. Yep, that's 100% something you should go to the seller with and just say, hey, lender's all good except for, right, the roof. So we're going to ask for $18,000, $20,000 either, put in a repair allowance, or for you, it doesn't make any difference if it's that or it goes towards your closing costs and prepaids. Right?
Sure.
The lender might care.
Okay.
The lender might care. So the lender will set some of these rules for you. But that's a good one.
Okay.
That's 100% a good one to go back to the seller with. Yes. Yes.
I have a
So,
question.
yeah.
So that 7 to 14-day period happens before everything is like fully closed, like before the deal's fully closed.
That's correct. Yeah. I already closed it, didn't I? I did. So and we're going to transition to commercial here in a minute. In this residential contract, you have a 7 or 14-day, it's really your inspection period, right? Just like they call it on a residential transaction. It's your inspection period, which is 7, 10, 14 days. If it's a 5-unit or 6-unit property that has like a lot going on, where it's got like, a laundromat, or it's got like whatever, like you're going to want a 30-day to review, right? Everything that's physically in the property or physically in the property that needs work, and financial due diligence. And I guess I'm training you guys to think, if you're in residential now, moving into commercial, because in commercial, we think of those two as very separate due diligence periods. I'm going to bring that up now, actually.
Yeah, and like Jonathan, like that would make the 17 to 14 inspection period is, you have that time before your earnest money deposit goes hard, right? So
Oh.
you have that time period. That's really what that's all about. So
Yeah,
after that
that's what I
time period has passed, then it gives you an opportunity to do your inspections, do your due diligence, and then you can still walk away from the deal without having your earnest money deposit at risk, type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to show you guys now, and I know we're switching gears a little bit. This is more if you go into commercial, which is anything 6 units or up, right? Like this was a letter of intent, and that's what commercial is. You're not even doing a purchase and sale agreement until you do a letter of intent. Letter of intent that's signed by seller and buyer, then go to the attorneys to draft a real purchase and sale agreement.
Oh, we did some work at these properties for you.
I think you did. Yeah,
You
for sure.
bought these. Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah.
Yep. But I want to share you guys this.
I mean, you must got a great deal on that contractor that helped you with that. That's for sure.
I don't know about that. I think we ended up having to go to a new contractor because we just couldn't make the numbers work with the first one.
Good. That's good.
That's all right. It's all good. No, but I want to share this with you guys.
Yeah.
Due diligence and inspection. So these are two very different contingencies when you're dealing in commercial, but it's good for you to feel that even when you're dealing with residential, because if you think about it, right? Financial due diligence, that's reviewing those leases. It's reviewing the tenant applications. It's reviewing the bank statements. Because really the only thing that's telling the truth from the seller, and you don't have to go crazy on a residential transaction. This is for any of you guys doing house hacks or 4 units and under. You don't have to ask for the bank statements for the last 12 months. But no, that is the only way you're going to know what's actually being generated, what's actually producing. In commercial, it's a requirement. The banks need it and we want it. We want the last 24 months of bank statements. And we use those 24 months of bank statements to then fill in all of the categories and create our expenses and create our budgets, to then go back and see what the seller or the broker disclosed to us. And that's when we have our questions there, right? Well, you said that, it's only $7,000 in taxes. We're seeing on the bank statements for the last 2 years that it's been over, $9,800 each. Can you guys, and we just go as an innocent question asker, right? Like, here's some innocent questions that we have after going through all these numbers. In commercial, we do not move into the physical due diligence period or inspection period until we've completed the financial. Why? Because the seller, nor do we, want to waste our time, effort, and energy like going through tenant units, talking to them, all that stuff, if we're not going to move forward after looking at all the leases, the bank statements, and all that stuff, and the tax returns. So I want you guys just to kind of be aware of that. So and these are rolling contingencies. In fact, I don't know if this one is. Yeah, this one's, so you can see due diligence period. Buyer shall have up to 40 days from the date upon receipt of all documentation from the seller. Why do we do that? Because the seller can take their sweet ass time and not deliver our whole checklist that we have for them, the due diligence checklist. So we say, okay, we're going to take 40 days from when you get us all the information. That means we're going to let them know once we have sufficient information to start our due diligence process with an email. So we go through all that and we give them a due diligence checklist, which I'm happy to review here too. Once this is completed, usually questions come up, clarifications are needed. We have a conversation with the seller around anything that doesn't mesh with what we've been told or disclosed. And we go through a round of renegotiations typically at that moment, right? Well, your leases, you said you were renting for this, you weren't, or they're behind by 6 months. So they can't really, the lender can't really count those as part of the income, right? So what do you want to do here, Mr. Seller? We can reduce the purchase price or get a credit at closing, or we can go through that. Then once we've settled that piece, we go into inspection. Inspection being the physical due diligence period instead of the financial. So after that, 30 days from when that was completed to go through the whole thing, inspect units, common areas, speak with existing manager or staff, speak with existing tenants, reviewing any available studies, regarding condition of the land, all that stuff. And once we do that, we want to do that because if you find that asbestos or you find a heating system that's not up to par, that they said it's still, it's only 5 years old, that's when you want to get your list together and know roughly what your costs are going to be, to go back to the seller and once again approach them. Okay, we finished our physical due diligence. We had some questions and clarifications that we still needed from you. Can we, jump on a Zoom call, or here's a list that we found that are above and beyond what we've originally budgeted for, right? Because normally you're going to need to do paint, carpet, turns, like no matter what, right? Because most of these things are not well managed. But if it's a heating system or a roof or asbestos pipes, if there's a lot of knob and tube that's still active, if there's New Hampshire, especially if there's lead paint, that's a huge liability now because they're forcing testing at, I think, 2 or 3 years old. So all that to say, and then we have beyond that, just so that you're aware, this is in commercial now. We also have a mortgage contingency, which is starting after that contingency. So they're called rolling contingencies, going through finance, going through physical, and then going into our mortgage, because our lender can't even start the loan process until we have everything else already fleshed out in those first 2 contingencies. Do you guys feel that or see where that's going? It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a lot for people who are just doing house hacks, but if you start to think this way now, this will help you as you start to make that transition from a 3 or 4 unit building into a 6, 10, 12, or 24 unit. Right? We're not here to talk about hotels, inns, and all that stuff. I know On does a lot with short-term rentals. I know, Jason does. There's a whole bunch of other things to take into account when you're also operating a business on the property. So I just went through a lot. I'll go back here and I'll say this. This is the quick evaluation. So if tenant pays, you can use a 45% expense ratio. If landlord pays, you can use a 55% expense ratio. The one number right in the middle of that is 50%. So if you don't know the number yet, you at least can have an idea as to what this property can net every single year. So in this one, if we just use that 50% number, $35,400, I'm going to look at this number here, $31,358. We're pretty close, aren't we? In fact, because tenants were paying utilities, right? We were right on. 31,860, 31,158 is where we were at. So what does that mean? Well, if we take our gross income, 70,800, that we're going to get, no matter what, the bank and you are going to want to have something in here for loss to lease and economic vacancy, right? So vacancy, and then people who just don't pay. So banks right now are using 3 and 3 for the most part. We try to go, I've always used 5 and 5. And every single project that I've ever underwritten, it doesn't matter how hot the housing market is, I always use like a 10% solid loss to lease and economic vacancy number. We'll add in here any laundry or if there's any sort of parking or storage fees that we want to put in here. But other than that, you want to try to keep to this budget. And here's your net operating income. So now that you have the net operating income, what's the only thing that's not included in your NOI? The cost of your debt, right? And here's the part where I think this specific spreadsheet is broken. So what we can do here is percent down equity. I have to go to this tab and ultimately change this completely. So 25% down. Is that changing anything? Let me do 20% down. Oh, that did. Okay, that changed the down payment, changed the mortgage amount, but it did not change this one, this annual debt service. That's why we got to do that. So we'll up this to, I don't know, what are you thinking, 7.5, Scott?
Sounds about right.
Cool.
Yep.
So I'm going to go here. We got 7.5 loan values of here. And we've got a scheduled payment of 4640.86. So that times 12, I'm going to go 4640.86 equals 4640 times 12. So we're at an annual debt service of 55,680. Oh, that's at a 25-year amortization. You said 30-year, right?
I think this
439,107.
Can you get,
I'm assuming it, yeah.
can you get 30? Can you get 30 on a commercial right now?
I can't, but maybe Scott knows people.
I only know people Nick knows.
Commercials typically 2025 year AM, and the rates for the full doc you can still get around 7.5. You know, if you're doing soft money or institutional money, we're still looking at like 9.5 to not, but that's just me because I'm lazy and I don't do full doc anymore. But here we can see how the numbers look, right? How do they pan out? Well, we have a net operating income of 32,000, and in this case, the loan's going to be $59,000. That numbers for me just don't seem to add up. But
No.
that's also why. So when you mentioned that too, Scott, here's the thing. Remember why you're all doing this, right? Multifamily is if we're moving from get to grow in our G5 framework, right? Getting means you get the income, you have active income that's coming in from real estate or from otherwise. Grow is when you're taking some of that active income and pushing it into passive income and accumulating cash flowing assets. So if Scott's doing this to buy a value add piece of property and this thing's going to be worth 1.05 after he's done fixing it up, maybe he wants to just refinance and try to, and well, refinancing would put you in the same kind of debt situation. Maybe he wants to just flip this property in 12 to 18 months, right? The biggest thing for me is I will not, having learned my lesson, I will not buy any piece of property that, unless it's a single family rehab, that's not an in and out in 12 months, that does not cash flow or negative cash flows, right? Because that will just put it, it's an alligator and it's eating away at every other cash flow that we have for our business. So in this case too, we also have some other tools in here, override valuation. So like this is using a cap rate, which are not accurate when you're using, 4 units and under, but I like to know what that is anyway. This is going to be how it's valued commercially. So if we say cap rate is at 6.5, Nashua, Manchester right now is at 6.75. So using the income method, this is how the commercial appraisers would evaluate this. Okay, based on what it's generating for net operating income, if we apply a 6.75% cap rate, an appraiser would come in and say this is going to be worth $500,000. But if we're using per unit comparables, which in a 5 or 4 unit and under they usually do, that sometimes comes out higher, sometimes comes out lower. So in this case, right, a 4 unit in Manchester, I know Manchester right now is going for like 180 per unit, roughly 180 to 200, depending on where you're at. So
Holy smokes.
yeah, so he might be around the 800. I'm going to put 750. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe they priced it the best way they could. And if you want to do an override, I just do that. That's in the middle. So if you want to like say, okay, instead of that, what if worst case scenario happens and we can only sell it for 685 or it's only worth 685? And this sort of has like this was a very rude BRRRR strategy thing that I had put in here. So based on this valuation, remember that just because we have to cover BRRRR strategy because it's a multifamily call, right? I'll be the first to tell people that, actually Gordon's the first to tell people outright that the BRRRR strategy is dead. He did on Facebook very publicly.
I get, yes, I am very public about that one, and I get vilified every time I say it, but I will continue to freaking say that. The BRRRR strategy is dead. Don't fucking build a business off of it right now. Jesus Christ.
Right. It's very
I mean, I know
difficult.
people that are successful on it. but it's a tough one. Numbers are
Yeah.
tough with it now, that one.
Yeah. Yep. As we're seeing, even just with this debt, right? And it's all about this debt. So Scott, going back to Gordon's ask of you, any of our multifamily purchases right now or hotel purchases, they have to have an element of seller carry or seller financing. They have to.
Mhm.
Because right now it's just not, you can't make the numbers work at these high debt numbers, these rates.
Right.
Rates coupled with
I
purchase price. Go ahead.
yeah, I agree. And I don't know if we updated the income from the start. I was looking at like what it's
Oh.
currently doing today is 112.
Oh, got it. Yeah, no, we
I think
didn't.
we have 70 in there. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So I'm gonna do I'll do this one. What did you say it was?
112.
I'm gonna take this.
That changes.
Equals, yep, that'll change something. Whoop. That's a lot better. That's a lot better. So there you go. So we have 112 coming in for gross potential. And well, okay, so these expenses though are also, let's take the 112 number for the expense ratio. Yeah. So if we're at that,
we can use the 40, all the tenants pay electric and heat, so we can use that 45%
45. Okay.
number.
So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to do an override. So tenants, and if they pick, I'm going to do 027. No, we want to do 029.
That's close. Isn't it?
Oh, 29. This would be 029. 56,000. So I'm going to just bump this instead of going through each one of these individually. I'm just going to bump this up to get the expenses up to the $56,000 mark. So that's an extra, what, 22,000? Yeah. Yeah. So net operating income is 44,000. Oh, well, that's 50. You said the tenant pays utilities. So it's 45. So 50,400. So I'm going to take that down to 16,000. That's better. So, but you're still right. Net operating income is 50,000, and your debt service is 59,173. So it's closer.
Yeah, but you're only losing 8,000 instead of 22,000. So that's good.
That's it.
All
It's
right.
true.
It's sold.
Does that mean it doesn't work?
Well,
Again,
that's
if
easy
you
though,
get
right?
sellers to carry some of that financing, right? Like if you can, but if you still need to do work to the property, here's another thing I want to just put off the table. Oh, I can make any deal work with sub 2. Like, no, you can't, because if the property needs a shit ton of work to it, right? Unless you're having that cash being paid to you with free money from investors that don't want to return, all of that costs money. It costs money to renovate these properties, and it costs money to have that money to do so. Whether that's bank financing, seller financing, or investor financing, it doesn't matter. So something like this, if it only needs 35,000 and it's not needed for your primary bank loan, this is also something that your lender though will control. Though you'll have to go to your bank lender and say, "Hey, I'm going to ask the seller for some seller financing. What will your programs allow?" Because sometimes they'll only allow 10 or 20% for seller carry. But what that does is that eliminates any sort of down payment for you, so you can put that money towards your rehab instead.
Mm-hmm.
As long as does the cash flow still work? In this case, you have to run the numbers. That's what this is. The secondary debt service is to put seller financing in here if you want to do that.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. That was a good exercise to go through. I went through probably too much with you guys. I went through residential and then we jumped into commercial. What else did you guys want to go over today? I've got another like 15 minutes or so. I know we're kind of.
Well, I do like the fact on this one alone, though, right? Like we do have a purchase price of 785 in here, and Scott was saying, hey, it really would only work for me at, an ask of like 675. I think tops was kind of like where he was at on that one, right? So if you do get that adjusted to that 675, that's obviously going to change quite a bit for you as well.
Perfect. No, and that's actually exactly what I wanted to show though on this too, Gordon. On that same note, so when do I make an offer on a multifamily property? You make the offer when the net cash flow works for what you guys want for your goals. Here's your cash flow number right down here. So exactly, we did all this stuff, right? Usually we'll only go through and do this individually, like all this stuff, once we have it already under contract. Otherwise, we're doing this 45, 55, or 50% quick math to see if we're even close. But after that, the only thing that's still a problem here, and I'm sure a spreadsheet guru can figure this out, because this loan with the debt service, you have to keep going back here and fixing and just getting the new So now it's 377576. So it's equals 377576. Whoops. Oh God. 377576 times 12. So that gives us a lot. So now, yeah. So he's looking at it now. He's cash flowing at least at $5,000 a year. Not a
Yes. Run to it.
bunch.
Maybe
Getting
a
to the point
slow
where it's
walk.
almost
bet.
making sense.
$600 a month. I'll take it, right? $600 a month. I'll take it. No big deal.
With a debt of 540.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, trust me. I much prefer a self-finance deal and talk to them about 0% interest. Every payment that I make goes 100% to debt. That's my bread and butter these days.
Yep.
But
Yep. And
You
in
know.
due diligence, that's actually something that's very good, Gordon. Like we come up with that in our due diligence. So you guys know we bought that house up. We bought the two 95% seller finance deals in Manchester. And with that, with all the stuff came up, right? The physical stuff that we weren't counting on. Of course, the financials were all being lied about. So we said, hey, and they were like, no, we can't, we don't want to do seller contribution, but we can't do any of that stuff. Like, okay, well, we're okay upping our purchase price, right? We can probably make this work if, like, you guys all know the term, right? Like if we are able to not have to get these high rate or high bank financing debts. So what would it be like for you, right? Like, let's structure something that works for you, knowing that we have to do a significant amount of cash outlay the first 3 to 6 months, knowing that we have to come to the table with $60,000 to $65,000 or $85,000. What would make sense for you on a monthly basis, right? So we structured it where, okay, the first 6 months they didn't get any payments, and we also structured it where the question asked them is, how much do you need per month, right? You're getting an answer from them. And for them, they're like, okay, we want, I don't remember the numbers offhand now. We want $4,000 a month, but that's what we need. Like, we want more. That's what we'll take for now. So, did you just give me a thumbs down? What was that? Did you?
Me?
Oh,
Scott gave me a thumbs down on the
No.
Zoom. What was that?
I did not. I was just messing with my head.
Wow, I never saw that before. Like, wow, I did take that personally. But with the extra amount of work needed, we were able, right? So that means no payments for 6 months. And it also meant we could graduate in an amortization schedule. So, because eventually they wanted to get their 6 or 7% at the time. So like, okay, then after the first 6 months, we're going to start with just regular payments at 0% for the next 6 months. Then we're going to graduate into a 3% loan, and then a 4% loan for another 6, and then a 5% loan. And then we'll cap it to 5%. That's what we did with them. And it was all about what they needed, right? And they were happy because now they're getting a much higher purchase price. And we could do that because it still cash flowed at the 3%, 4%, and 5%. Gave us some cash for the rehab at the beginning.
Okay.
Cool. Who else has questions? I know we covered a lot today. Probably too much. Yeah, Mitch. Oh, Mitch is on. Holy cow. What's up, brother?
What's up, Nick?
Oh my God. Good to see you.
I happened to literally see your Facebook notification when I was in front of my machine, and I was like, let me dive into this. I mean, I was multitasking the whole time. I apologize, but I always like to see the knowledge that Nick's dropping for people because it's always value add. And dude, this spreadsheet's awesome. Like, it's definitely more robust than mine in terms of like more detail. Also, I'm not a spreadsheet guru, but bro, that annual debt service calculation tab, dude, you got to automate that. That's super simple. You just link it to the loan amortization schedule tab. Super easy to do, bro. Super.
I did that already,
easy.
and it keeps not working, Mitch. Can you
I
fix
don't
it?
know. Well, I could, wow. I can mess with you offline. I don't know if we want to eat up 5 minutes of everyone's time right now, but it should be super easy.
Equals this. Oh, damn it. Yeah, like this. No, I can't even select it. Never mind.
Why is it? Yeah, it's all like grayed out almost. Yeah, you should be able to click on, like, even if you clicked on the first payment.
Didn't work. I
That's
know.
weird.
That's okay. So I had to do it
Yeah,
manually.
literally. Like, you can click on D, like D18.
I know. That's 0. Yeah. Nope. We won't do it here. But yeah, I'm with you.
That's funny. We'll fight with it.
Ridiculous.
Next time I'm up, and I see you, we'll fight with it. I'm coming up again in May, so hopefully we can get together.
Oh, I love it, brother. That's awesome. Mitch is
But yeah,
our local investor now. He's in Florida, and he's doing his thing with. He's a very into the crypto. So if anybody ever needs any information, drop him a note in the REI and lease group.
oh, stay out, buy Bitcoin and forget about it. There you go. There's your advice. No, interesting stuff. I like that you include, the everything like, closing acquisition costs in your spreadsheet. I kind of just like spitball that every time I'm running numbers on my stuff. And you're surprisingly more aggressive than me on your loss to lease and your economic vacancy, with a total in 10% between the two. I'm more so like 5 to 8.
Yeah.
At least on like, 5 or 6 units. But yeah, I do agree with some of the things that you and Gordon were saying, like about Bird being dead. It's getting really tough. It's getting really tough. Like I bird a 5-unit in Gardner, Mass, last summer.
Nice.
No idea how I pulled that off, but I did. We like refied out, literally even took like $5,000 out extra. I think that's also because of the first time in history, our rental budget was lower than expected, which we all know never, ever happens. But yeah, it's getting tougher. I have an off-market 2-family that I've closed on that we technically could burr. Like I could get my money out of it, but we're just gonna flip it because the demand for 2 families in Massachusetts is insane right now, and they're just getting bid up
Mhm.
by FHA buyers. So, that's kind of a know your market. So yeah, it's like flip 2s and keep everything bigger than that. But yeah, anyone that's on this call that was kind of getting fresh knowledge, solid stuff that Nick shared, especially your LOI, and then like even like your P&S and the contingencies you had in there, like the septic is big. I am going to take that approach now going forward with like off-market stuff that have septic, because that's always the big wild card. It's like, well, listen, if your septic is effed, it's going to cost me another potentially $30,000. So just you just work it into the contract, so it's agreed upon up front, as opposed to trying to fight them after the fact, after you spend a couple grand, right, getting it tested, and then you're like, well, I need a credit, and then they're like, F you, and then basically you end up falling out of contract and you wasted that money, right? So
Yep.
get it up there up front. So these are the little things that you learn over the years. So like Nick's got the experience, right? So he's been through all this. That's how he knows to do it, and how you protect yourself. And these are things that, I've been doing real estate shit almost 10 years now. And, there's still things I'm learning. And septic is newer to me because I'm in Southern Florida. There's like no septics down here. So this is like literally like new to me in terms of septic, and like, that's how I'm going to go about it now. Like I'm working with an off-market potential seller, and it's got septic, and it's probably in bad shape. And this is exactly how I'm going to present it to him now. So
Nice.
glad I was able to stumble onto the call because I learned something useful. And this is, ideally why everyone jumps on these calls. And, if you're not a part of Nick's group, well, there's plenty of reasons on why to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate that. On the septic side,
Yeah,
we
no
didn't really
problem.
cover that, but I brought it back up on the screen if anybody wants to take a screenshot of it. For those in the accelerated program, you already have access to this. So septics here were just super pricey. And it's not necessarily for multifamily. If you have a multifamily with septic, we get that in our RV parks. It's a true pain in the ass. If you have any multifamily and it's on septic, you're 100% going to want to make sure that gets tested. And that's another line item in your expense budget. They're going to need to come and pump that thing like every 2 months, inspect it every year. Like it's a big deal because they get filled really fast. And your tenants, I can guarantee you, are going to put things down that toilet that don't belong there. So all of that is going to that's going to add your repairs and maintenance budget. It's going to add another line item called, septic and septic maintenance on your line item budget. And we had a couple other things in here too. Yeah, short sale, multifamily tenanted. I'm glad you got that out of it though, Mitch. Up here, septics go for anywhere between 20, and we had one in Harvard that was $180,000. So you never really know. In New Hampshire, they're a little cheaper than that. But just don't buy multifamily with septic, or if you do, get a really good discount. He mentioned something else too: duplexes over rentals. He's selling all 2s and under. and he's keeping threes and up. That's a very simple investment Excel sheet as well, you guys, right? If you were to BRRRR that 2-family, what is his cash flow per month going to be? And otherwise, what is the cash that's going to be in his pocket after a sale of that 2-family? Right? So you can divide that into each other. It'll tell you how many months it would take for him to get that return back if he held it for cash flow versus just sold it as a duplex. So we're seeing that
100%,
now.
Nick.
What was that?
I said 100%. That's exactly why, like, because my like you've met my business partner up there. Like he just wants to acquire more units and build cash flow. And I'm like, dude, if we keep this, it's because of the higher interest rates, right? If we keep this, we're gonna cash flow like $300 a month after we refi out. I was like, he's like, I don't understand why it's low. I'm like, because interest rates are 2 points higher. I'm like, if we could cash flow 5+, I would keep it. I was like, or we can flip this thing, guaranteed, like we're gonna make at least 50, but we probably can make like 70. I was just like, that's like 14, 15 years of cash flow up front. I was just like, it's a no-brainer. So he's like, all right, that makes sense. Let's do it. So what you just said is spot on. And that's exactly why we decided to flip it. And again, like I said, it's because not only do those numbers make sense, but these 2 units are being overvalued sort of in a way because you have all these FHA buyers going after them in the markets I am in Massachusetts, at least, because they can get approved for these properties that are the same price as a single family because you have that unit with income. And that's what I kind of picked up on over the last year or so. But again, this is particular to the market I'm in, which, goes back to know your market. And, Nick, you're all over the country at this point, but you still have your stuff, obviously in New England, and you guys are probably seeing it with like, when you get a property, right, you have your turnover list, right? It's not easy to get tenants out in Massachusetts right now. It's very difficult. There's a quote unquote housing crisis. My eviction attorney basically told me he lost his first eviction case in 15 years of his career recently because the courts want to keep people in their homes. So that's something you got to pay mind to when you're buying something that has existing tenants that are far below market, because that's going to be, it's almost like a line item you don't have, but it's one that you almost have to like start putting in. And when I negotiate with sellers, I'm telling them like, listen, I'm literally buying your problem. Like, and I'm not going to buy it for a premium, let alone fair value. Like, because, I'm buying properties where tenants are, 50, 75, 100% like below market, pretty much like half of market. And yeah, it sounds great to just go in there and raise rents to market, fix it up, raise rent to markets, but that's not reality, because you know what? Most of those people can't afford that because they're paying $600 rent when they should be paying like $1,200. And it's like, that money's not there. So then you fall into a battle where it's just like either they stop paying or they're like, well, this is the most I can do. And yeah, you're able to raise them to, let's say 800, 900, but you're still 300 below market and you're putting money into the property. So these are things to keep in mind. And it goes back to know your market. If you're investing in Florida, it's a non-issue. Like I can have someone out in 30 days in Florida if I need to. And the goal is not to push people out, but at the same time, you still have to, make sure you're operating a business. So just food for thought when you're also acquiring property that has existing tenants, even if they are like their month-to-month leases, doesn't mean you're able to just drop notice and have them out, right? It really depends on your state. So just dig into that. Just ways to go about it that's better than others. Like in Massachusetts, I don't even evict for non-payment, because if I do, then they can apply for something called REFT, and then I have to wait for that and blah, blah, blah. I just possession. I don't even care about the money. I'll just eat it. I'll eat the lost rent because then I have a shot at getting them out. And that's what's worked for me in the last year. So I'm digging into the weeds here, but these are just examples of know your market, because every state's different. And these are the ins and outs that like basically Nick, has been sharing with you guys, and save a lot of time and money, because I know these things from experience, right? If I could have just had someone tell me, it's like, well, shit, I could have saved like 3 years of learning.
That was gold, Mitch. Yeah, there's a reason.
Red states, baby. Red states.
Red states.
Yes, red states. 100%, Gordon. So
there's a reason. We only have one. Well, besides one RV park, we have one house and one RV park in Massachusetts. Everything else is Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Hampshire, Maine, and West Virginia. And in Florida, once in a while. So something to be said.
Yeah. I wonder if we can stop paying our mortgages, and then the bank will, and then they won't foreclose on us too. Like, I wonder if that's possible. I wonder if we can do that since the tenants don't have to pay. I wonder if we can get away with it. Interesting.
I think
I know we're just deep. We could try, right? And then I can come to Christina and Christina can help me out. We can
Yeah,
negotiate
I'll
it. Let's try.
sell their properties. So let's do it.
All right. All right. Who wants to try it? Because I don't want to be the guinea pig. Who wants to try it? I've already gone through bankruptcy and foreclosure myself before. I don't want to do it again. It kind of sucks.
I need a non-recourse loan, and I'll try.
There you go. There you go. I like it.
That's awesome.
Cool.
All right, cool. I know we're already at time. Does anyone have any, burning questions they want answered next few minutes or so? Or this might have been a little too much for some people. I'm seeing some blank faces.
Oh, I think it was great. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, man. I always appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Yeah, it was
this is
great.
Grant. I was in real estate 20 years ago, and so I'm really jumping back in as a newbie. And I just gotta ask, I'd like to throw it out to people. If you were talking to yourself when you were just getting started, what advice would you give yourself? I'd like to hear what you've learned and what you would say to yourself when you were just starting out.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Who wants to take that one first?
I think we should ask On. On wants to contribute to that one. He's like, what just happened? I wasn't even paying attention.
I would say buy more rental units, especially 2010, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The appreciation I just bought in 2020, and I'm up like 70% on my property that I bought. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn how to analyze and evaluate and costs and what the expenses costs are, and how to analyze a deal, and then acquire more property and push acquiring more property. That's what I would say.
I like that one. I like that one, Lindsay. Lindsay says, don't wait for someone to make it happen for you. That's a good one. It's a very good one. That's near and dear to my heart. So I would say, yeah, exactly. Don't wait and think that you need to know everything before you jump forward. I wasted a good 6 years of my life in the real estate education space before I even actually went forward and did something. So that was like a huge thing for me, right? And yeah, it's funny. We're talking about, Nick had mentioned earlier, Manchester. I mean, units are trading at 180 to 200,000 a piece right now. I mean, seriously, in 2010, you could buy a 3-unit in downtown Manchester for freaking $120,000. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you could have bought 3 units for $120,000, and now they're going for, and these aren't even in good areas, mind you, right? It's like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I personally wish I bought real estate and held on to it a lot sooner in my path as well. I did a lot of fixing and flipping, and I did it for a need as well, because it was like I wanted to replace my income. And I wanted to make sure I could make money and support my family. So there was that. But I do definitely wish that I had started to accumulate assets in the try and true thing of, buy real estate and wait. It's real. It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Mitch
But
just
Grant,
wrote that.
welcome back to the game, man. It don't matter if
Yeah.
it's 20 years, man. Welcome back to the game, bro. Jump on in.
That's awesome. Mitch just put, just what you said, Gordon, buy real estate and wait instead of waiting to buy real estate. I'll say yes. For me, the only caveat to that is if you buy real estate and wait and it's sucking you $8,000 a month, cash flow negative properties, just be very, very, very careful.
Yes. Oh, I like this. Christina says, find your tribe and partner with people. That is so freaking
awesome.
true, right? Like huge game changer happened in my life when I decided to partner with people and stop playing the alone game, right?
Yeah.
And getting involved with other people. Now that can also bite you in the ass, but I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole nother hour and a half conversation.
That's why I'm here.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Keep on it. Yep.
Grant, I'll say for
remember
me,
Nick's point.
What was that?
I said, remember Nick's point about it's got a cash flow. Like you buy if it cash flows. Like you don't wait to buy, but not if it loses. Like, because think about it. If you buy a property that cash flows from day one, right? It doesn't matter what the market does, because if you're planning on holding that rental property, you're going to hold it through 3 market cycles anyway, right? So that's why, like, I just I don't understand how people actually F up real estate. That's one of the reasons I love it. Like, you don't have to be smart, like, to have success in real estate. You just need to know the basic principles and not make dumb decisions, right? As opposed to other investments where, you need to know how to, like, program an algo bot or some stuff and create a crypto and blah, blah, blah. Like, you don't need to do any of that with real estate. So, like Nick said, make sure it's not a money suck. If you buy something, the numbers work, like, how do you really lose? Because even if you're wrong, quote unquote, you just hold it and you collect cash flow. And then at some point you're going to be right in terms of the asset value, even if, like, you quote unquote buy at the top, right? And everyone's been waiting for a drop for the last, 3 years, is still waiting, and prices have just gone up and up and up. And yeah, at some point I'm sure we'll get a pullback, but does it matter if you're cash flowing?
Yeah.
My random's 2 cents off my soapbox. Nick, thanks for letting me join. This was awesome.
Love
It's
you,
always a
brother.
pleasure to
Thanks for
see
coming
you and to learn. I always learn something anytime we chat it up. So awesome stuff, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you stopping by. And Grant, to add one more thing to yours. So you don't know my story yet, but I'm not here to bore you because everyone else has heard it. But my first 5 deals went south, really bad. So 2005, when I started, I lost all my cash and credit my first 5 deals. And little did I know that was only the beginning of my journey, Grant. So that turned into, failing forward fast is also cliche. But when I thought my life was over after those first 5 deals, and then, fast forward, SEC investigations and partnership breakups and I've been through, that's just part of it. It's all part of it. It's all part of that journey. And the other big thing that comes to mind with fail forward fast is to be open to trusting, right? Even if you've had a bad meal at a restaurant, you still go out to eat. So be open to trusting if you did have a bad experience with someone, right? And the third one and final one, which is, I'm still learning this every single day, is patience. Patience with yourself, patience with others, patience in where you're at, patience in the progress and how fast or slow you think you're going, patience with that inner critic in your head. The inner critic is very fucking loud. It's all a matter of, of how we learn what's the intuition and what is that inner critic, and learning to embrace that inner critic and loving them anyway. I hear you coming up now for a reason. I get it. And what am I going to do tomorrow to, like, just move this forward, right? Without listening to that all the time. So patience. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, that's all I got for today.
Cool.
If anybody has any questions, post up in your groups, and we'll be sure to take on all the questions as they come. It was a good topic today. Hopefully everyone got something out of it.
Thank you,
Great
guys.
seeing y'all.
Yeah, good seeing everybody. Woot woot.
Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you in a bit.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.